Support the show, try CuriosityStream, and get Nebula for free. Oh my god, prepping for a baby is wild. I don't know what nesting is like, but I was changing light switches and painting walls, and while I was doing all of that, I ended up hearing this.
Pete Buttigieg has been on leave from his job since August after adopting a child. Paternity leave, they call it, trying to figure out how to breastfeed. No word on how that went.
Ugh, right? The shocking thing is, this isn't that shocking. We expect this from trash humans like whoever this guy is. It's LGBTQ phobic, it harms men, and it's implying that men can't or shouldn't parent. What if your community was so hostile to your parents that it ended up on the nighttime entertainment shows, simply because they exist? What if you had two moms or two dads? How does same-sex parenting affect your family dynamic in general? And how does it change how kids are raised? Does it? Does it have to? Hey there humans, Trace here, welcome back. This is episode 2 of 4, again, on dad parents. We left off asking, do same-sex parents raise kids in the same way as different sex parents? The founding principle of family studies is that two present, engaged, and involved parents who are often married to each other or in a long-term stable relationship are raising children. Historically, they were also of different sexes, and the first big studies of parenting were held in these post-war baby boomer traditional white picket fence ideals with 2.4 kids and a dog families and blah, blah, blah. But is that actually true? Is that the best way to raise kids? We assumed it was because that was the ideal of the time. Men and women being the mom and dad partner in that traditional 2.4 kids and a dog picket fence world, that's actually not as important as we thought. And in fact, the science seems to say anyone can be a mom. Anyone can be a dad. Because dad isn't a person with a penis. Dad is a set of traits and behaviors. Being a dad doesn't mean being male or even being masculine. It means being present, engaged, and involved, and fulfilling certain traits in their lives. Let me quote the American Historical Review. Quote, recent historical research on the family has revised some widely held myths about family life in the past, as well as generalizations about the impact of the grand processes of social change on the family and society. And that change is ongoing. As we warp further into the 21st century, researchers are gonna look at a lot more realistic snapshots of the world. And remember, lots of snapshots over time, 124, thousands or whatever, you get endgame of science. So finding that man dads and woman moms are less important is kind of a big deal, and that is what they're finding. But what is important? Having parents who are together, having parents who cohabitate, having parents who are present, engaged, and involved. Haha. But recently, studying what sex the parents are and how that affects their children through education, social skills, and future successes. For that, let's look at this huge study review. There's nothing there. I just felt like it was more dramatic to turn, like a professor, like there's a... Okay, anyway, let's look at this study. Cornell published a review of 79 scholarly studies regarding same-sex parenting, and of those, found 75 of them said that children of gay and lesbian parents fare no worse than other children. 75 of the 79. 75 said lesbian, gay, bisexual parentage created well-adjusted and completely normal children, if we're cool with that phrase. What is normal? It's the 21st century after all. Of the 4 dissenting studies out of the 79, one was rebuked by hundreds of scientists as hyper-flawed. Awesome. And the other 3 had very small samples of LGBT parents and children. Though they did say there might be lower scholastic performance, but there was no explanation, just a correlation. And maybe more emotional issues, again, no explanation and small sample sizes. You get the idea. And in fact, an Australian study of same-sex parentage found that kids of same-sex couples are happier and were more well-adjusted than children of different sex couples. You don't want to draw that out to say they're way happier, but they're a little happier. And in the Netherlands, the first place to legalize same-sex marriage 20 years ago, kids of same-sex couples performed better in school, both primary and secondary school, and most studies indicate that there is no causal difference between same-sex and different sex parents. No difference at all. The American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy says the same thing. Quote, children with two moms or two dads fare just as well as children with heterosexual parents. Remember the last episode when we talked about controlling for variables? Just holding them constant throughout the experiment? By controlling variables, we can find, in terms of emotional functioning, sexual orientation, stigmatization, gender role behavior, behavioral adjustment, gender identity, learning, and grade point averages, that children raised by lesbian mothers or gay fathers did not differ from children raised by het parents. I can hear the doubting Thomasinas out there. How can that be? Aren't we whatever, blah, 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 blah. That can be because humans are versatile. We adapt, we grow, and we thrive. The kid comes home to live with you. They are not pre-programmed with only one way to live, and that being the best way. When we talk about involved fathers, we're really talking about the behaviors that we associate with fathers, not what sex organs they have. Just like the careless whisperer George Michael said, I will be your father figure. I know it's not actually about that, but longitudinal studies show no difference for adoptive parents, social parents, as in parents who aren't part of your family, legal parents, step parents, queer parents, same-sex parents, or mixed-sex parents. No difference at all. More research is always needed, but the more studies that are released, the more support we have that non-majority family units are exactly the same. In fact, they're finding all families suffer from the same failures. Things like fighting and parental infighting, and of course, issues with emotional abuse and all of that. That goes across the board. Humans are kind of crappy, but children of same-sex parents might have some benefits, because adolescents with same-sex parents reported feeling more connected at school. Children in gay and lesbian households are more likely to talk about emotionally difficult topics. They're more resilient, more compassionate, and more tolerant. And why would that be? It's almost like there's a whole segment of our society that's propagandizing each other to believe that same-sex parents are different or somehow harmful to children, or, somehow...
Paternity leave, they call it, trying to figure out how to breastfeed. No word on how that went.
What a tool. Why would children of alternative families be more resilient, compassionate, and tolerant? I have a hypothesis. It's my opinion. I want to put that out there first. We're going to set this 21st century topic aside for a second, and we're going to pick up a 19th and 20th century topic. More familiar, still hot, older, immigrant families. So my hypothesis is to equate immigrants with same-sex couples, because they cannot hide who they are in public. They all get attacks and resentments from the majority. In the 1850s, fear of immigrants ruining our cities, destroying our families, was rampant in media and propaganda. Unruly Dutch were taking over elegant mansions in New York City. In the 1990s, Chinese, Salvadorian, and Indian immigrants were attacked simply for being not white in America. This is not a new issue. Globally, though, a 2012 study found that immigrants were more likely to start businesses. And some of the biggest in the world were started by immigrants. Google, SpaceX, Huffington Post, Kohl's, eBay, AT&T, Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, Kraft, all founded by immigrants. And that's just a small list. There's lots more. Researchers wanted to know, why is it that immigrants start more businesses? And they hypothesized that it's because they are more comfortable with risk. They left their home country to make a better life. That's a huge risk. Starting a business, not as risky by comparison. And their co-hypothesis is immigrants have cross-cultural knowledge. And this is when my brain made that connection. Would you say there are parallels to same-sex families? People who are forced to be themselves in public no matter what they look like or feel. People who have a view of the world that involves risk and cross-cultural knowledge. It might be a stretch, but in my opinion, that rings true. And what happens to the kids of those groups? They grow up in a different environment than a kid of the majority who can blend in, who can disappear and not have all of those problems. Same-sex couples like immigrant families and mixed-race families, they cannot go to the grocery store to blend in. They stand out no matter what. And kids are very observant, so then they would ask uncomfortable questions like, why do I have two mommies and they don't? Conversations that are not easily avoided and that other 7 and 8-year-olds might not have with their parents. I don't want to beleaguer this hypothesis since I'm really just editorializing here, but I'll say this. Holding transparent and open conversations about how some kids have two daddies or two mommies, that can only be a benefit to children. Because transparency is great, knowledge is powerful, and understanding how the world really works younger, galaxy brain. When parents are two present, engaged, and involved humans, and there's transparency, knowledge, and understanding, personal story. It wasn't until adulthood that I realized that I thought of myself as white, but my classmates in my community didn't always. I thought we were the same, but no one asked, Lauren Ballard or Brad Decker about Mexico. Our family's Puerto Rican, by the way. No one called them Race Rodriguez in school at the cafeteria. Their yearbook prediction probably focused on something about their dreams, the sports they played, the achievements or extensions of their hobbies. I was in band, a little bit of theater, played a bunch of different sports. Mine said that I would probably jump on stage at Ricky Martin concerts and shout "Uno, dos, tres." It was one of my nicknames in high school. Now, it's this totally great YouTube channel, but it wasn't a nickname that I made up for myself. It was assigned to me because of something that I couldn't control. And I pass, which is very helpful. And some on this list, they'd pass more easily than others would. But the point is, alternative families cannot pass as easily as majority families, and perhaps because of that, the kids need to be more resilient, more compassionate, and more tolerant. Because they can't pass for normal, whatever that means. Same-sex couples, the science says, are no different than normal couples. They have the same struggles, same family dynamics, and maybe some bonus ones, if you want to call it that, and they're the same family. Turns out, Abjit Naskar's great quote fits like a glove. Being homosexual is no more abnormal than being left-handed. So what you might be thinking now is, isn't this episode about dad parents? Where'd we end up with that? Well, something they don't tell you about being a new dad is that you've got big chunks of downtime. So I found that I end up watching a lot of cool stuff online, usually on Nebula or CuriosityStream. Nebula is a streaming service that a bunch of us started to have a place to experiment and explore ideas, to fund each other's projects and dreams and, lift up all of the creations. A rising tide lifts all boats, as they say. Creators on Nebula are amazing. There's so many different things that you can learn about. One that I loved recently was the history of synths. I've always loved synth sound. I'm big into indie-tronica, but I don't know anything about synths. So that was really cool from Volksgeist. And of course, you can watch all sorts of stuff on Nebula, like regular videos that people put out from psychology to engineering. We got a lot of creators, like 100 different creators now. It's awesome. Sometimes I'll have long stints though when the baby is sleeping, so I can go and put on a series on CuriosityStream, because CS has thousands of documentaries and series that you can learn from, like the secret history of our evolution. The best part, both CuriosityStream and Nebula are bundled together. It's only $14.79 a year. That's less than $1.25 a month. That's not a trial, that is the full price. To get it, use my offer code at curiositystream.com/trace. It'll support me and you'll get this great deal. The promo code's TRACE. Super easy to remember. curiositystream.com/trace, promo code TRACE. You get thousands of docs on CuriosityStream, so many videos on Nebula, updated all the time. I know, it's awesome. It's the best deal on the internet. Support the show and incidentally support yourself by encouraging your brain to learn and be entertained at the same time. So thanks. So, dads are more of a concept than they are a person with a sex organ that we recognize as male. And instead, they're traits, they're behaviors. And what are those things? We'll get into those pretty soon. But we've gone through 2 parts so far. Are dads parents really? Answer, most definitely. Are 2 dads or 2 moms parents really? Oh, most definitely. And for part 3, I wanna know what's going on in dad's brain. Because babies will change it. It's amazing. Let me know in the comments what you think of the series so far, and I'll see you in the future.